Jessica Dishon was born on May 2, 1982 in the quiet, close-knit town of Shepherdsville, Kentucky, a rural community where neighbors knew each other by name and crime was virtually unheard of. The eldest of 3 children, Jessica grew up helping her parents care for her 2 younger brothers, developing a strong sense of responsibility and independence at an early age. By the time she was 15, she had taken a part-time job at a local restaurant, diligently saving her earnings to purchase her dream car, a red Pontiac, which she proudly drove during her senior year of high school. Academically gifted and well-liked by her peers, Jessica had her future carefully mapped out. She planned to attend college to study accounting, a career that suited her meticulous and hardworking nature. Her life took an exciting turn in the fall of 1999 when, at 17, she began dating a boy from school, a relationship that filled her with the kind of youthful joy and anticipation that made the future seem even brighter. The morning of Friday, September 10, 1999, began like any other in the Dishon household. Jessica's parents left for work while she was still asleep, and her younger brothers boarded the school bus, leaving her to get ready on her own before driving herself to school later that morning. But when her mother returned home around noon to check on her, she was immediately struck by an unsettling sight. Jessica's car was still parked in the driveway, even though she should have been in class by then. A quick search of the house revealed that Jessica wasn't in her room, nor had she left any note explaining her absence. Her mother's initial assumption that Jessica might have overslept and missed school gave way to confusion when a call to her husband confirmed he hadn't given her a ride. The growing sense of unease escalated into full-blown panic when her mother approached Jessica's car and noticed the driver's door was slightly ajar. Inside, she discovered a scene that would haunt her forever. Jessica's cell phone lay on the seat, the numbers 9-1 partially dialed as if she had attempted to call for help but was interrupted. Beneath the front seat was one of Jessica's shoes, and in the back seat were her purse, textbooks, and work uniform, all items she would never have left behind voluntarily. Frantic, her parents contacted the school and were shocked to learn that Jessica had never arrived that day, a fact the school had failed to report despite its attendance policies. When they called the local sheriff's office, their fears were met with dismissive skepticism. The sheriff brushed off their concerns, insisting that Jessica had likely run away and would return home soon. He paid no attention to the glaring red flags, the unlocked car, the abandoned belongings, the unfinished 911 call, nor did he consider the impossibility of Jessica wandering off without her shoes, phone, or car in a rural area where walking long distances would have been impractical and dangerous. Left with no choice, Jessica's parents mobilized their own search party, enlisting the help of friends, family, and neighbors to scour the town and surrounding areas. The search was spearheaded by Jessica's father and his brother, Stanley Dishon, who knew the local terrain well. Acting on a hunch, Stanley suggested they focus their efforts near a secluded river known to be a hotspot for drug activity and other illicit behavior. 4 hours, they combed through the dense underbrush but found no trace of Jessica. The next morning, a bizarre and unsettling incident occurred. Jessica's younger brother was playing in the yard when he suddenly ran inside, claiming he had heard his sister's voice crying out for help. Jessica's father, clutching his shotgun, rushed outside to investigate, only to be joined by Stanley, who had coincidentally arrived at that very moment. As they searched the property, they noticed plumes of smoke rising from their neighbor David Brooks's land. Rushing over, they found Brooks burning what appeared to be clothing in a fire pit. When confronted, Brooks refused to let them inspect the property and demanded they leave. This encounter marked the beginning of a series of strange and menacing behaviors from Brooks, who began driving slowly past the Dishon home, staring at the family with an eerie, unblinking smile. The Dishons also started receiving disturbing phone calls in which the caller remained silent, breathing heavily into the receiver. Convinced Brooks was involved, they pleaded with the sheriff to investigate, but their pleas fell on deaf ears. Frustrated by the lack of progress, Jessica's father contacted the FBI, who, unlike the local authorities, took the case seriously. Agents conducted a thorough investigation, collecting fingerprints from Jessica's room and car, and organizing large-scale searches with helicopters and volunteer teams. Their efforts led them to Brooks's property, where cadaver dogs detected the scent of decomposition near a fire pit and inside a shed, where a pair of black gloves and a photograph of Jessica were discovered. Despite these chilling finds, there was insufficient evidence to charge Brooks, and the investigation stalled. Then, on September 27, 1999, 17 agonizing days after Jessica's disappearance, a woman driving near the river spotted something unsettling near a tree. Upon closer inspection, she realized it was a human body and immediately called the police. The remains were badly decomposed, missing fingers and limbs, and partially wrapped in a rope with traces of red and silver paint. Jessica's mother identified her daughter by a small butterfly tattoo on her ankle, a heartbreaking confirmation that dashed any lingering hope of her survival. The autopsy revealed that Jessica had been strangled and sexually assaulted, and that her injuries indicated she had been alive for up to 3 days after her disappearance. The revelation that she might have been saved had the police acted sooner was a devastating blow to her family. In the years that followed, the case grew cold despite the FBI's suspicion of Brooks, whose inconsistent statements and failed polygraph test painted him as a prime suspect. A trial in 2003 ended in a hung jury, and with no new evidence, Brooks walked free. The Dishon family's grief was compounded by the knowledge that justice had slipped through their fingers. Then, in 2012, a breakthrough emerged. Detective Lynn Hunt, reviewing the case files, was appalled by the mishandling of the investigation. Her renewed efforts uncovered a shocking truth: Jessica's uncle, Stanley Dishon, had confessed to her murder in 2002 while serving time for sexually assaulting another young relative. A prison informant had written a letter detailing Stanley's admission, a letter the police had ignored. According to the informant, Stanley had abused Jessica for years, threatening her into silence. When she began dating a boyfriend, he feared exposure and attacked her as she tried to call 911. He then held her captive in a shed for days before murdering her and dumping her body near the river. In 2015, Stanley accepted a plea deal, confessing to Jessica's murder and multiple assaults in exchange for a 20-year sentence. For Jessica's family, the revelation that her killer was her own uncle was a betrayal beyond comprehension. The case remains a haunting reminder of police negligence, the fragility of trust, and the enduring pain of a family denied justice for far too long.